live in 3.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Wednesday, June 19th, North Middlesex Special Council meeting. The reason for this meeting is this kickoff of our official plan review. So I'll call the meeting to order at this time. Unfortunately, Councillor Keogh and Councillor Nerda are unable to join us tonight, but disclosure of pecuniary interest, if you have any, please forward them through to our clerk. And at this time, I would invite Abby to start on this special public meeting of council. Whenever you're ready, Abby.
Thank you, Your Honor. All right, so the purpose of tonight is to introduce the official plan review process and begin engaging council and members of the public, as well to inform members of the community about areas and themes where land use policies are being reviewed, and to answer any questions that you may have. I have also included a few slides at the end of my presentation in regards to some of the recent provincial changes through Bill 185, as well as the proposed provincial planning statement. So what is an official plan? It is a comprehensive document that contains goals, policies, and land use schedules that sets the 25-year framework for land use decisions in detailed planning and provision of municipal services. An official plan also indicates where housing, agriculture, industry, commercial, and retail land uses will be located. So why do we review the official plan? So in addition to it being a statutory requirement of the Planning Act, the municipality's official plan was last reviewed in 2011. And it is a requirement that the official plan conform to the Planning Act, the provincial policy statement, as well as the county official plan. So this will be a large conformity exercise, given that we've had quite a few changes since the last time the OP was reviewed here. So in terms of process, I like to show council this image when I come and do these presentations, because it kind of gives us an overview of where we're at. So the arrow just shows that we're in the project launch stage. So moving forward, we'll be moving into consultation and engagement. So that would include council consultation as well as engagement with the public. We would be looking hopefully to have a statutory public meeting around this time next year, with adoption by council following in July of next year, and then subsequent approval by the county likely around next September. That is all subject to change. In the instance that we get a provincial housing bill or some sort of change through another provincial policy statement. The last 5 years have been significant in that regard. Things have kind of been a bit of a moving target. So all of these are subject to change in the event that any of that does occur. So in terms of general policy updates, I will go over a few of those at a high level, just based on categories. So the first being provincial changes in conformity exercise. So we would be looking to revise policies to reflect any changes to matters of provincial interest, which are outlined in Section 2 of the Planning Act. I would be including a land acknowledgement as well as references to First Nations consultation, which is a provincial requirement. And this exercise will involve consultation with First Nations as well. So we will be relying on their expertise and their feedback in that regard. I'll be looking to amend policies to include any of the changes resulting from these provincial housing bills. A big major theme of these housing bills has been additional residential units, and we've had a couple changes in that regard through each housing bill. And then we would also be looking to amend the policies to include any changes resulting from the county official plan review. So one off the top of my head would be the rolling date for surplus farm dwelling severances, as opposed to the January 1st, 1999 that we have in the OP right now. So settlement areas, I'd be looking to address changes in the policy direction as it relates to settlement area boundary expansions. We're also going to be doing a land balance analysis or a comprehensive review which essentially reviews the township's land needs for both employment land uses as well as residential land uses. And then we'd be looking to update the municipality's population and housing projections, which is all based on the work that we did at the county level through the county official plan review. So on the topic of housing, I'm going to be introducing some additional residential unit policies into the North Middlesex official plan. And hopefully those would apply in both settlement areas, which are as of right, as well as the agricultural areas. We'd be looking to amend your policies for temporary garden suites, introduce some more policies speaking to affordable housing as well as dwelling types, hopefully a more robust definition in that regard, and a little bit more policy direction as it relates to requiring the provision of affordable housing, as well as housing policies that speak to housing to accommodate temporary farm workers, given that that was a major change in the county's official plan through County OPA 3. So agricultural and rural areas, we'd be amending these policies to permit agriculture-related and on-farm diversified uses subject to criteria. So that was a change that was introduced in the provincial policy statement in 2020. So again, provincial requirement, and it would just allow for a little bit more flexibility as it relates to different uses in the agricultural area. We'd be revising the criteria for surplus farm dwelling consents. That's all subject to council's direction, certainly. And then we'd also be reviewing and updating your minimum distance separation policies to align with OMAFRA's guideline. And again, subject to council's direction. So natural heritage and source water protection. We will be implementing policies that speak to addressing climate change. So that is a matter of provincial interest in Section 2 of the Planning Act. As well, those policies were introduced in the provincial policy statement in 2020. We'd be updating the natural heritage policies to further protect natural heritage features. And this would also include a review of the municipality's land use schedules just to ensure that they do reflect the findings of the Natural Heritage System study that was done in 2014. And then we'd also be looking to implement some updated source water protection policies. And that work was also done a number of years ago. So in terms of employment, industry, and economic development, a component of the comprehensive review that I'll be doing will look at the townships, or I guess the municipality's employment lands, and kind of evaluating where those are currently located, addressing if any additional lands would be required to be designated. And then in terms of the policy updates in this regard, we will largely be relying on the work that was done by MDB through the county official plan review, because they implemented some pretty robust policies in this regard through that exercise. So in terms of next steps, staff would be looking to begin consultation and engagement with council, municipal staff, and the public. We are in the process of working on some discussion papers based on the themes that policy changes would fall under, so the ones that I just went over. So that would likely follow any consultation and engagement, as one of the discussion papers will focus on what staff have heard. And we have our planning student who has joined us tonight working on a couple of those papers, so that's a big help. And then in the background, staff will just start working on the actual red line document, which will eventually form the official plan amendment that we'll be bringing back to council around this time next year. So talk about the provincial changes. We're going to start with Bill 185. So it was assented on June 6th. The changes enacted build upon, or in several cases undo, the provincial changes over the past several housing bills. So that would be Bill 109, Bill 23, and Bill 97. The changes relate to development charges, municipal infrastructure, and land use planning are of most direct impact to the county and partner municipalities. So changes that were enacted to the Development Charges Act include elimination of the 5-year phase-in of DCs, reinstatement of growth-related studies as eligible DC costs, as well as the streamlining the process to extend or make minor amendments to DC bylaws. In terms of the elimination of the 5-year phase-in, the assented version of the bill also provided some transition provisions in this regard, and I believe they provided municipalities with 6 months to amend their bylaws to remove the phase-in. Enacted changes to the development or to the Municipal Act provide municipalities with the use it or lose it authority to withdraw and reallocate water and wastewater capacity from an approved development where development of the site has not yet occurred after a specified period of time, subject to the municipality establishing policies to guide this authority. Enacted changes to the Planning Act include the elimination of planning application fee refunds where timelines are not met. Pre-application consultation would be voluntary, and applicants would be able to challenge the reasonableness of municipal complete application requirements at any time during the pre-consultation stage. And so just for council's information, prior to Bill 185, municipalities were able to require that applicants pre-consult on development applications. So we'll no longer be able to do that. Although I would note that pre-consultation meetings are mutually beneficial to both the municipality as well as developers. And I would say generally we've had great feedback on that practice. So I would just advise municipalities to continue with that practice. These changes also eliminate third-party appeals for official plan and zoning bylaw amendments, except for specified persons, which includes utility companies, the applicant, the registered owner of land to which the plan or bylaw would apply, as well as Indigenous communities. And these changes also restore applicant rights of appeal for privately initiated proposals to expand settlement area boundaries, unless the boundaries are approved by the province in an upper tier official plan. So these rights of appeal, I believe, were removed from the Planning Act in like 2004. And essentially what it did was it placed the responsibility and decision-making authority wholly with municipalities in terms of where they would grow. So this change would kind of open that back up to the OLT. So in regards to the proposed provincial planning statement, we received a second draft on April 10th this year. And again, the proposed document is intended to combine the existing provincial policy statement with the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, which does not apply to us here in North Middlesex. Generally speaking, this change is a move to a more permissive planning framework with less stringent requirements from a growth management perspective. So I've highlighted some of the major changes in the document here, which include the requirement for municipalities to provide a range and mix of housing options, including more housing on farms, including ARUs and housing for farm workers. This would also include an expanded definition of housing options, which includes components like built form, but also tenure, which we've never seen before. So different types of rental housing and all of that stuff. The document would also require municipalities to plan for a minimum 20-year planning horizon with a maximum 30-year horizon, whereas currently we're required to plan to a maximum 25-year horizon. So essentially, this would just provide municipalities with a little bit more flexibility in how long you're projecting for. The document would also provide greater flexibility for municipalities and developers to apply to expand settlement area boundaries without the requirement for a municipal comprehensive review and without as rigorous of criteria. The proposed language encourages municipalities to allocate and reallocate, if necessary, unused municipal water and sewage services to meet the current and projected housing needs. So this policy change would align with the changes that were made to the Municipal Act in terms of the use it or lose it authority. And generally speaking, I think that this is a welcome change, something that municipalities have been encouraging the province with for a number of years. The natural heritage policies and related definitions are largely based on the existing policies, very limited change in this regard. And the document also introduces an agricultural systems approach and the requirement for municipalities to implement an agricultural systems approach, which includes the identification of and planning for the agricultural land base and agri-food network. And so this is something that's been done in the Greater Golden Horseshoe. And essentially, it has a bit of an economic development component in that it ties the agricultural land base and like supporting businesses into the land use planning policies. So in terms of implications, if this document is approved as proposed, it represents a significant change in land use planning for Ontario, and it would necessitate updates to all official plans and zoning bylaws. So it's great that we're kind of in the thick, or that we will be in the thick of an official plan review when we're getting this new document, so that staff will be able to incorporate these changes. And these changes are extensive, but there are a number of changes that would have a bit more impact within the county and locally. So this includes additional residential units. So this document actually contains some robust policy direction as it relates to additional residential units in the agricultural area, which again is something that municipalities have been looking to the province for a number of years. It contains development criteria, which I think is great because it gives us some more direction on the types of policies that we should be including in our local official plans. The second is lot creation in agricultural areas. So as council is likely aware, the initial document that was proposed last year would have allowed the creation of up to 3 lots per existing agricultural lot, which is significant. The numbers for Middlesex County were rather staggering in that regard. And they have not included those policies in this second draft. So the lot creation policies largely represent what exists currently. Settlement area boundary expansions. So again, just this idea of moving away from the municipal comprehensive review and allowing for privately initiated settlement area boundary expansions, as well as the changes to the Planning Act that would make these types of applications appealable by applicants. A bit of a change to how we do things now. County official plan growth responsibility. So the proposed document just contains a little bit more policy direction as it relates to upper tier municipalities and their growth responsibilities in terms of delineating where growth should occur locally, as well as including population and employment projections. And then just some other considerations would be the inclusion and introduction of the requirement for municipalities to undertake watershed planning. That is a new concept and something that's not at this stage in the game quite clear to staff what is meant by that. So we would be looking for a little bit more direction from the province on some items like that. And that is it from me. Thank you.
Are you open to questions right now from council? Is that direction? You're open to questions from council at this time?
Yep.
Who'd like to start? Councillor Daigle.
Thank you. My question will start on the finance end of this. Do we have any idea of what this process is going to cost and what part is covered under our county? Because this is a special project. Doing this all is ours, right? Like it doesn't, none of this is covered in the county levy. This project is all 100% us to do this project.
So I thought this was something provided through the county. We have a share of it, but I'm just trying to remember what the portion of it was off the top of my head. I think we were sharing it 50-50, if I remember correctly, something to that effect.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I can certainly look into that and send you a follow-up email. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get clarification on it, Councilor Daigle, but we do have, there was an agreement when we started on some of these that the county would certainly assist in doing official plan. Other questions from council? Councilor Canellison?
Thank you, Mayor Rob. I have a couple of questions, actually. The one that you just touched on there a little bit was the lot creation, which was maybe not necessarily followed on, didn't seem to be a lot of enthusiasm for it. What about those small parcels, plots of land that are not workable with today's agricultural equipment? They're almost pretty much severed off by a waterway or a creek, and it's like 1 or 2 hectares. There's really agricultural land, but really can't be workable. Is that going to be looked upon as favorable to be severed and a lot creation there?
So through the mayor, we haven't received any policy direction that would speak to those undersized lots that currently exist. And I would just note that this is a draft document. So based on the feedback that the province may have received through the consultation process, that is certainly something that they could include in any final document. But at this point in time, we've not seen anything in that regard.
My other question is in the comment you made or discussion, an item that you showed us was temporary housing for farm workers. And a number of agriculture industries and the size of the agriculture industry these days, there's no such thing as temporary workers. They may stay for a short time, but the workers are required full-time ongoing basis. So why is the term temporary used? Because that would suggest to me that the house can only be available temporarily as opposed to long-term.
Great. Yeah. Thank you through the mayor. So I would just say that like historically, that is maybe the feedback that the province has got in that regard, that farmers require like the assistance of temporary workers. I can just confidently say that the policies in that regard will not require that. That was one of the main changes that were made to those policies through the county official plan review. So we do provide for permanent housing options for additional employment for farmers where it is.
Excellent. And my final comment is, and this is a bit of a burn in my butt, when I see a comment up there in reference to the golden horseshoe and how that impacts us, what the hell's that got to do with us?
So essentially, it won't impact us. I think what they were finding in the area that's in the Greater Golden Horseshoe was a little bit too many layers of policy. So essentially, by the province combining the two documents, it's one less layer in that area. I would say that a lot of the policies in the growth plan are very urban centric, so they're not going to be a huge impact to us here.
I just thought one final question. I'll stop one up on me. Brownfields, something, another thing that's I've been considering for a number of years. Is there any change in brownfields in the option to perhaps develop brownfields? And how are brownfields defined?
So I don't know off the top of my head if there are many changes between the two documents on the topic of brownfields, but generally speaking, brownfields are sites that once contain some sort of like industrial type use and have the potential to be contaminated. So sometimes they require a little bit of remediation prior to any sort of land use change that introduces a more sensitive land use.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And maybe as this process goes on, we can get some clarity to some of those questions, especially on the brownfield. Because I think, and I know we have a couple where a little bit has been used, but they say the whole area is brownfield. Deputy Mayor Hodges.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just watching the slides going through there, and I'm pretty sure as we go through this process, a lot of the questions I have will be answered. There's one there that referred to as possible expansion of settlement areas. How big or how small is the settlement area is what you're talking. Are we talking places like Carlisle, West McGilvery, Brinsley, Lurie? You know, where that, or are we talking Park Hill, Elsa Craig? Is that, you know, what's the definition of the size of the settlement?
So
Thank
in terms of what we'll be looking at through this exercise, would be where the municipality should be growing. The direction that we receive from the province is full municipal services, so that would likely be Park Hill, Elsa Craig, Marin. We would have a look at the hamlet areas to see if there's any vacant residential land available there. And, you know, through consultation with members of the public, staff, and council, there's a potential that we would be looking to move some of those lands if necessary. But that's all kind of future discussion at this stage of the game.
Okay. Other questions? Councillor Irwin.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. You mentioned using the county's population housing projection, the last revision of the county official plan. When were those done?
So those were done in, I believe, 2021. Yes.
I'm only want to assure they're relevant because we went through a recent exercise looking at another public body's housing projections and they weren't relevant. So, and we've had a lot of growth here. So I'm curious about relevancy of those studies. And I have an additional question. You'll work going to your Gantt chart on page 2 of the brief you gave us. I see a number of months of public consultation and engagement. Now, will this process be the consultation and engagement be one where we help pick the times, places, and dates for that activity to occur at the local council level?
Certainly, yeah. That's something that I would like some feedback that I would like to hear from council in terms of your vision for that type of activity and where that should occur or how that should occur. It's certainly feedback that I'm looking to hear. It's kind of why we're here tonight. Just any, you know, ideas that you may have in that regard, I'm certainly open to listening to.
Great. And
Go ahead.
one final question or observation, Your Worship. You talk about watershed planning. Now we're engaged in very early stage in our working group looking at environmental sustainability in our community. One of the issues that came up from our first meeting was we share a watershed. So I'm curious about, and I know you said this is early days and undefined, but I'm curious about what degree we would have a say in that initiative.
So based on staff's review of some of the wording in the document and some of the other changes that have happened on the Conservation Authority's front over the past 2 years, it almost seems as though the province may be placing more responsibilities with municipalities in that regard. But as I said, at this stage in the game, it's still a little bit unclear. We would be looking to the province for a little bit more direction in that regard.
Okay, other questions, council? Just a comment to those open houses. I think it's very important, given our municipality, our community, is that we would have open houses in Park Hill and in Elsa Craig. And, you know, as we go along, maybe we have to look at that, whether it has to be expanded, but certainly in both communities, for both ends. Anything else from council at this time? This is the start of our process, not our, I mean, because I do have some questions, but I think they'll get answered as we go along. Carolyn.
Maybe was mentioned already, and I apologize if it was, but we're looking at settlement area boundaries as well as employment lands as well. I'm not sure if Abby was mentioned that, but certainly as we're looking at areas in our primary communities being Elsa Craig, Park Hill, and to some degree Nairn, as far as employment lands would also be taken into consideration as well as residential. So if that was mentioned, I apologize, but I thought I'd bring that to light.
And to add on to that also, we'd also be looking to implement some more robust policies as it relates to mixed use. So more of those like ground floor commercial with some residential up above. There are some great examples in other municipalities in the county that have worked really, really well. So we would be looking to implement some of those here in North Middlesex as well.
Anything else from this from council at this time? If not, we have a recommended motion that the subject report be received for information and that in accordance with section 26 of the Planning Act, staff be directed to proceed with the official plan review. Moved by Councillor Daigle, seconded by Councillor Irwin. In favor? Carry. And at this time, allow time for public input. But come on forward, come on up to the microphone, to one of them.
Hello, thank you for taking a seat. As Bev Thompson, I live at 142 Henderson Street, Elsie Craig. Daryl, I'm Bev Thompson, Daryl Thompson here. We own property at 11691 Petty Street, North Middlesex. It's a business property, term employment. This process, so it's actually zoned at the rural industrial. I started maybe think of this 5 years ago. We met with Stephanie back in April of 2019. She recommended this might be something that would be looked at under the official plan review if I was interested. They were going to be doing one. If this wasn't time sensitive, that we maybe go through this process. 2020 happened with the pandemic, and here we are in 2024. It's official plan review now, sort of thing. What we were looking at potentially is of this property that we have, there's been a business on there for 45 years. About 41% of the property is used for business, 59% of the property is grass area. We're looking at trying to maybe get 2 lots, 7 off housing. Brother Daryl has a son, Matt, works there at the shop. He's 22 years of age now, going to be 22 this year. That's why 5 years ago it wasn't a big thing. He was 17, still not a pushing issue, but it's potential that we'd like to have build a house on. At this point, it's been like say 59% grass. I love cutting grass personally, but it's an expensive piece of grass sitting there. So that is our main objective at this point right now. I guess from my understanding, if you take rural industrial lands out, somewhere along the line, they got to put their own industrial land back. I think that thought process doing it during Henry too. So now I had brought a bit of a maps and stuff to show what that would be, but it's kind of I have to hand that out at this point. I've got maps drawn up what we're looking at wanting to do. Basically, be taking 2 lots off the farthermost north of the grass area, still leaving 60% of the current grounds in rural industrial, 40% coming 2 lots to what goes. That's what I had.
Okay, thanks, Bev. Abby, if you want to respond to that.
Yeah, for sure. Through the mayor. So past staff would have told you to hold off until the official plan review because given that the lands are considered employment lands, they have to be considered through a municipal comprehensive review within the confines of the current provincial policy statement. So essentially that means that the municipality can't down designate them to something else in the absence of like sound planning justification, which comes from the municipal comprehensive review, or redesignating the lands elsewhere. which is something that the municipality would do through the official plan review exercise. So this was the perfect time for you to come out and make staff aware, make council aware. And yes, we can continue to work on this through the duration of the process.
As you know, 5 so or part 2, 3, does that still up for state process of potentially seeing a time frame or?
Yes, I would just note that there are changes that could impact what you're looking to do in the draft document. It's very, very difficult for staff to give firm answers given the period of change in the last 2 years, and just given that we know that changes in this regard are coming. So based on what the province does, I will be providing members of council and members of the public with updates on what the province is doing. And if the policies do change, we'll certainly make you aware through this process as well. And we'll continue to work through it based on what the province does.
Okay, thank you, Bev. Abby, just to follow up to that, isn't it a lot of times we have trouble with taking away employment lands because they don't want to have them taken away? It's usually is people are happy to have employment land added to their property, correct? Like, so.
Yeah.
So at least it's without knowing exactly what's going to happen in the future, it would seem to be the easier side of it.
Yeah, it really depends.
I understand. You don't want to commit too much. I get it. I understand. I didn't mean to put you in the spot, but it's just, I know that a lot of times people certainly do not want that designation taken away from
That's correct. Yes.
them. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Bev. Thanks, Daryl. Anything else from council? Okay, at this time, then we would have the reading of the bylaws.
Thank you, Your Worship. That bylaws 57 on 2024 be read first and second time.
Councillor Irwin and Deputy Mayor Hodgins, all in favor? Carried.
That bylaw 57 of 2024 be read third and final time.
Councillor Daigle, Councillor Canellison, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. I do need a motion to adjourn this portion of the meeting and to reconvene at 6 o'clock.